So I want to start out and I want to introduce a good friend of mine, a guy that motivates and inspires me. And I got to tell you, I've been around a lot of inspirational people. I've been around a lot of great speakers. And this guy fires me up. I love listening to his story. His name is Jason Schechterle. He is a retired Phoenix police officer. He is the subject of the book Burning Shield, and he is a highly sought after speaker, all about overcoming adversity, perseverance, and self-belief, things that I think so many people want to be aware of right now. He was in a gruesome accident when he was on the police force, and I'm not going to steal his thunder. I'm going to let him tell a little bit of that story, but it is my great honor and privilege to introduce our very first speaker, Mr. Jason Schechterle. Take it away.
You're my biggest inspiration in life, and being a part of Eagle Rise just means the world to me. Welcome everybody who's tuning in right now. This is it's an incredible platform that we're able to do this in this new world that we live in. And yeah, I often talk about in my stories that we all have a story. We all have our individual adversities. We've all have things that we've gone through in life that we have needed to overcome, and there's a lot more that's coming our way. And we find ourselves today in a situation where in some way we are all sharing in the same story. We are all affected by this COVID-19, the quarantine, the economy being shut down, being stuck at home, being off work, being terminated from work. And it's just an interesting time to be in. And, you know, people might look at me and they think, oh, well, you know, you overcame what you went through 19 years ago, so this should be easy. And one of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give to people is you got to meet yourself where you are. You don't want to, you know, live in the past. It's great to reflect on it. It's great to have learned from it. But I'm not sitting here today thinking about what happened to me 19 years ago. I'm thinking about what I'm going through right now. I'm not out there traveling. I'm not out there giving my speeches like I normally do. I'm certainly taking a financial hit like most of us. It's deeply affecting my kids. One of my sons is missing his college graduation this year because it was terminated. One of my sons trying to get recruited for college baseball. There is no baseball season. There is no going through that. And we're all facing something similar. And you don't want to get into the habit of comparing your adversity to somebody else. We all are facing adversity with what we're going through right now. And it's great to have respect and compassion for other people. But if you compare, well, at least I don't have it as bad as this person, you're really kind of holding yourself back. Life boils down to choices. And this is a prime example of it. I've often used the examples. There was a couple of major stories that I think about often back in 2018. One was the Southwest Airlines tragedy that happened. Airplane left LaGuardia Airport, headed to Dallas Love Field, 30,000 feet. There's an engine failure. One window was broken. One woman was sucked halfway out that window and died. It was a terrible tragedy. She widowed her husband. She left 2 kids behind. But all I could think about is what took her to that conference in New York? Why did she book that flight to go home? I fly 50,000 miles a year on Southwest Airlines, so I know that when she got on that plane, she chose that seat. Not thinking much of it, just want to go home to my family. You might remember the duck boat tragedy that happened in the summer of 2018 in Missouri. 17 people drowned, 9 people from the same family. Right before they got on the boat, this family decided to step out of line, take a picture on a beautiful scenic lake that they were on. And when they did that, the ticket taker asked them to switch to a different boat. That's the boat that sank. All because they wanted to take a picture together and make a memory. That's how simple and fragile life is. And one of the most beautiful things about life is we are free to make whatever choices we want every single day. We are not free from the consequences of those choices. And we are certainly at the mercy of not only the choices that we make, members of our family, our peers, our supervisors. But now you're seeing it on a global scale with politicians, and we're all stuck at home or in this quarantine and needing to follow these rules, needing to try and leave today better than we found it by keeping ourselves healthy, keeping other people healthy. I think for most of you like me, I go to bed at night and I don't care who you're sleeping next to, you're alone. You're alone with your thoughts, and your mind can be a very, very dangerous place. I know a lot of us out there, we have thoughts cross our mind that sometimes we're like, wow, even my closest friend knew what I just thought. They think I was crazy. The mind is a dangerous place. And late at night, you're alone with your thoughts. That's when the weight of the world should come down on you. It's when you should be thinking about your adversity and some of your challenges. You don't have it perfect. Everybody you love and support doesn't have it perfect. But when you wake up the next day, the most inherent desire that we have as human beings is to be inspired. Something move me, something make me feel good. And it doesn't take much. It can be the smallest of things, especially right now. I mean, I can, depending on what my mindset is, put my favorite song on, go back and watch a rerun of something that's just going to make me laugh or smile, whatever. It's not about getting through the day. Sometimes it's just about getting through the next hour and then see what you can see from there. 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day at a time is what we have to do. And again, we're all suffering something right now. It's a little bit different than somebody in the next house over or the next town over, but you've got to remember to meet yourself where you are. My life changed greatly 19 years ago. I thought it was possibly the worst thing that could have ever happened to me. I was a Phoenix police officer, a dream job, loving life, and I can't begin to tell you how perfect I had it at 28 years old. And on March 26th of 2001, my world literally exploded. No warning, didn't see it coming. I was hit at over 100 miles an hour, trapped in that car right there that you see. Miracle upon miracle, I've got firefighters in the intersection. I'm 2 miles away from what I would argue is the best burn center in the United States. I'm on their trauma table in less than 8 minutes. Everything is going in my favor. Spent 2.5 months in a coma, 5 months in the hospital, years of rehab, years of surgery, years of not thinking that I'm going to ever get past where I was, which is what a lot of us might be thinking right now. When are we going to be able to get out of our house? When are we going to be able to go back to work? When are we going to start making money again? It doesn't matter that I caught on fire 19 years ago. What matters is I made it through that. I am 100% responsible and accountable for who I am, how I look, where I'm at today, and how do I make it through the next phase. And this is the next phase of life. What I always remember is my face and my hands were burned. My heart wasn't. My face and my hands are disfigured. My soul wasn't. My character isn't. My hands and my eyes give me 30% what they used to. That does not mean that my effort is only going to be 30%. So as we all go through what we're going through right now, especially with this COVID-19, and there's really, you know, we can listen to all the talking heads on TV. We really don't know what the end is going to be, if it's going to come back, when the economy is going to reopen, and when we're going to have the true freedoms that we just a few months ago took for granted. We don't know when those are coming back. But this disease, these decisions that are being made across the country cannot take away from who you are at your soul, with your character and with your effort. You can still find ways to inspire yourself. You can still find ways to make each and every day better than the way you found it. Life truly is 10% what happens to you, and it's 90% how you react to it. And if you're patient in your grief, if you're patient in your struggle, you are going to make it through this, and we're all going to be better off. This is stuff that's going to be written about in history books. This is stuff that our grandkids and their kids are going to be talking about, like, wow, my family lived through that. This is pretty devastating across the globe right now. We're going to make it through it. You've got to keep your mindset as positive as you can. You've got to exercise mentally. You've got to exercise physically and emotionally. And now it's a good opportunity to realize the things that we did take for granted and what actually matters in life. I wouldn't trade a day of what I've gone through. I wouldn't trade a day of what I'm going through, because I know when I come out of this, I'm going to be a whole lot better off than when it started. God bless all of you, and I wish you the best of luck as you get through this. Mindset is everything. Do not forget that. Thanks, Jason.
All right, guys. Jason, awesome, man. I love listening to your message. It always is just absolutely so powerful. So, Jason, stop your share for me, please.
Yep, doing it right now.
So, and it is definitely, yeah, it's so right. I mean, there are these moments that come along, these moments that come along in our lives that just, they change everything. Fundamentally, in a second, they can just crush us. So Jason delivers such a powerful message about that, how to keep driving forward. And I think that's such a powerful line that I love it. I've heard you say it before, but where you talk about my hands were burned, my eyes were burned, but my soul wasn't burned. And I tell you what, that is power. All right, guys, we're going to jump into our next speaker, who is the amazing Inez Barberio. Inez, we met Inez several years ago, and she talks about emotional intelligence, which I think right now in this day and age is so critical with everything going on. And I know there are so many businesses out there that are really focusing on this. I read a report somewhere that emotional intelligence, EQ, will take you 10 times further than IQ. That your ability to interact and understand situations. So Inez discussed how to strengthen your inner core and mindset through the study and practice of emotional intelligence. She teaches her method of improving your mental health, developing stronger relationships, creating success, both personally and professionally, through her program, Core Growth Strategies. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our next speaker, Mrs. Inez Barberio. Inez, take it away.
Hi, thank you so much, Jason, and thank you everybody for being here today. It is quite an honor to be part of this summit. And so what I'm going to do today is just kind of give you a little taste of two of my programs that I kind of like intertwined with emotional intelligence and diversity and inclusion, because really the emotional intelligence is like the core of everything. It is defining our feelings versus our thoughts, and it's what's going to drive us to success in all aspects of our lives. So just take a look at this little video. I'm just going to show you a little clip for a minute. But let's stop him. So the reason I'm showing this video is because when we are babies and when we're born with love, we're born with happiness. We're not born with hatred or racism or fears. These are aspects of our lives that we're taught as we are growing up. And so through the study and practice of emotional intelligence, we have to learn to take that subconscious, those self-limiting beliefs, those negative traits that we were taught, not to hurt us. I mean, it was based upon where we grew up, our family, our religion, our politics, whatever environment we were on creates the people we are today. And with emotional intelligence, it's really important to reach back into our subconscious and look back at the root of our beliefs, understand where they came from. Oops. So initially, the term was spearheaded by Daniel Goleman, emotional intelligence, back in the late 1980s. And businesses kind of looked at it as a soft skill set at the time. It didn't seem too important. Everybody just wanted the regular skill sets that you learn in school, college, whatever it is. However, as time is going by, we are learning that these mental skill sets really propel us to so much more success than any other thing. Like, we can learn how to be a computer programmer, no problem. But to be able to communicate with your coworkers, with your clients, to be able to read nonverbal cues, all of that is incredibly important to further your success. And through, it's been getting more media exposure now. We have it on Time, we have it on Emotional Intelligence, Harvard Business Review. The World Economic Forum had actually said like 5 years ago that EQ is going to be one of the top 10 skill sets that businesses are going to be looking for in their employees by the year 2020. Well, here we are now. We're in the year 2020, and it's something that we really need to focus on, with our staff, with our environment, and with our children in ourselves as well. So I totally see emotional intelligence as a key ingredient to success in every aspect of our lives. It could be through our personal well-being, our mental health, career-wise, our finances. All of that is intertwined in emotional intelligence. So to truly become, to learn to master emotional intelligence, listen, this is something that I continue to strive for every single day. I've been studying human behavior now for about 13 years. I've been focusing more so on emotional intelligence the last 4 years, and it's something though I've really improved upon in my life. Every single day I continue to practice it through different mental tools that I have developed or learned through reading or through doing different programs myself, and of course my mentor who brought me on. And in life we have either a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. As you can see in this slide, there's different examples, right? So failure is an opportunity to grow. That's what a growth mindset is, where a fixed mindset is failure is the limit of my abilities. Many people have a fixed mindset, thinking with that knowledge that, what, this person's only born smart. I'm not born smart. I don't have those skills. I can't reach that. And when we learn that we are capable of achieving anything we want by taking inspired action, by learning, by listening to understand, by looking at different perspectives, all of that can truly lead us to having a more of a growth mindset and learning how to be more successful in different aspects of our lives. And I do this with my own kids. I do have a college-age son who, when he got his master's degree from Cornell University, and when he told me when he showed me his school, his schedule, rather, it was really exciting to me to see that one of his required courses was emotional intelligence. So to see that Cornell University is, implementing it, and then also, of course, Yale University has the Center for Emotional Intelligence. Their president actually is one of the founders of EQ. So, higher institutions are seeing the importance of it. So my thought is, well, why don't we start doing it, younger? Why don't we start this in preschool? Why don't we start with our children? Why don't we start it, in our training programs with work? This will really help our kids learn a lot more, because we have to understand, how do you define success? Is it by the money you make? Is it the job that you have? Is it how you look, how you, what you drive, where you live? There's all these external factors that people use to define success, where really, for me personally, I define success by, waking up, feeling happy, feeling calm, feeling like, that I'm ready to conquer the world and do whatever I can to spread love and kindness to other people. Huge component of emotional intelligence. So there's 5 major components. There is self-awareness, there's awareness of other people, there's learning how to manage your own emotions, there's intrinsic motivation, and of course, the most important, I feel, is empathy. And as I continue here, I'm going to kind of go into a little bit more about how I teach diversity inclusion as well, because lately, in the last few years, that's been a really hot topic, and I'm going to go more into that. But I feel like empathy is a component that many of us are missing. We're forgetting that this is what we need. It's the ability, to understand by how other people feel, what their viewpoints are, what their feelings. And as I show in the slide, it's the cornerstone of success. Learning how to stop judging other people and learning to put yourself in their place. My empathetic vibes are a little bit too high. Like any movie that I watch, if I watch like a really touching movie, for instance, I watched Hotel Rwanda for the first time about a month ago, and my poor teenage son was watching it with me, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, what are you doing?" Like I'm crying through the whole movie because I'm feeling what the characters in the movie were portraying. I'm feeling what they're going through. And when we learn to do that, we are less inclined to judge people. We're more inclined to look at different perspectives, and then we learn how to ask questions to understand. So as I was saying with diversity inclusion, this is going to be me. So we're all kind of labeled, right? We're all kind of being forced to put into a box, like what box to check. So this would be me 20 years ago. Well, gender female, obviously I'm still female. My race and ethnicity, I'm half Hispanic, half Chinese. And then at the time I was a single mother. I was on welfare, back over 20 years ago. At the time, I just completed high school. So people labeled me and saw me a certain way. Since then, I have a master's degree. I'm successful in my career. I'm happily married. I have another son. But society likes to label us, and we need to stop allowing ourselves to be put into a box and go back to that whole growth mindset aspect, to know that we're all different. And as I mentioned with diversity inclusion, there's major businesses are seeing that it's really important that we learn more about diversity inclusion. They've been spending billions of dollars on different programs that have not been successful because they're doing a one size fits all, right? They're trying to tell everybody, listen, we all need to do this together. And instead of breaking it down, saying we need to look at ourselves first. And I was at a conference in New York called Advertising Week, New York, and every one of these businesses were there, and they were showing what they're doing to spearhead to become a more inclusive environment. And what they found is that they've also increased their profits. Not only are they becoming or developing a more friendly environment among their workers, where they're making their workers more innovative through an inclusive environment, they're also seeing that it's increasing their bottom line. So my buzzer just went off. I could talk forever, but it's really important that we celebrate diversity. And when we learn how to uncover the people that we exclude rather, then we are able to bring back inclusivity. So thanks everybody for having me. And I'm gonna take it back to you, Jay.
Inez, thanks so much. Obviously amazing content. And for those of you out there, I think this is, Inez is right. This is the forefront of a lot of the future of industry, the emotional intelligence. I don't know if it was talked about quite as often in the past. Well, I know it wasn't talked about quite as much in the past, but believe it or not, even the SEAL teams are talking about emotional intelligence and the power of our ability to influence outside of just this or a weapon, our ability to influence people through understanding culture and understanding how people think and view the world. So Inez, awesome. Thank you so much. So, all right, our next speaker is a personal friend of mine. He is an amazing speaker. He is, I like to think of him as one of the most interesting men in the world because he is a guy that literally has been there and done that. He is a physical specimen, having helped create the CrossFit movement, one of the original founding athletes with CrossFit. He has been a federal agent. He has been a part of the military. He is a strong practitioner of the martial arts with a black belt in Krav Maga, and he is an incredible man of faith and spiritual leadership, currently going through seminary school. He is an author. I could go on and on. But it is my honor to introduce my good friend, Mr. Greg Amundson. Take it away, brother.
Thank you, my friend. It is certainly a blessing to be here with all of you today. Thank you for welcoming me and the other Eagle Eyes Speakers Bureau speakers into your home. In the Bible, it says that the steps of a righteous person are ordered by God. So I would like to think that every single one of us was ordered here today. We're all meant to be here today to join together. Thank you for having me. My friends, In the Bible, it says something absolutely remarkable, life-changing, that I'd like to share with you. But before I do, to give context to what I'm going to share with you, listen to these words from my mentor of 2001. I heard these words almost 20 years ago when I was starting in my career in law enforcement. He looked at me and he said, "Greg, if you tell me the truth, I will listen. If you tell me a fact, I will believe you. But if you share with me a story, then I will remember." Oh, I just love that so much. I remember those words to this day. My friends, in the time that we have together today, I hope to inspire you with a message by weaving together truth, fact, and story all in one. Are you ready for that? All right, we head to the words of the Bible, where we find this: the war between the house of David and the house of Saul lasted a long time. David grew stronger and stronger. Meanwhile, Saul grew weaker and weaker. Well, I'm not much of a mathematician. My background is in law enforcement. I had to do some basic addition and subtraction. But when I think about this verse, what's so remarkable about this verse, and the reason it's so applicable to you and I right now, is consider this. Two of the variables are the exact same. The war is the same. The time is the same. If these two variables are the same, how is it then that one person can grow stronger and stronger while the other person is growing weaker and weaker? Well, there must be a third variable, and there is. And this is what I want to share with you today, my friends. This variable, or in fact, three, that can fundamentally, radically, in an awesome way, change your life. In other words, what I want to share with you right now are three principles that can strengthen your mind, body, and spirit. Well, let's begin. Number one, the first principle, faith in God. Faith in God. Now, I'm not necessarily here to proclaim what God I want you to believe in. I'm a Christian. That's fundamental to me. However, here is what I do want to encourage you to consider. In the words of the great Christian mystic A.W. Tozer, the thoughts that come into your mind when you think about God are the most important thoughts about you. Listen to that one more time. This is incredible. The thoughts that come into your mind when you, my friends, think about God, those thoughts in your mind, those are the most important thoughts about you. So I want to encourage you to consider three thoughts about God. The first thought that I would encourage you to consider is that God loves you. Whether you want to refer to this being as God or a unified field of consciousness or pure spirit, that's up to you. However, make sure when you think about this supreme being, that one of the thoughts in your mind is that this supreme being loves you, cares for you. That's number one. Now that's very, very important, and we see the importance of that in the life of David. That's one of the ways that David was able to grow stronger while Saul grew weaker. Make sure the thoughts in your mind about God are constructive and positive. The second thought I would encourage you to consider is that God wants what's best for you. No matter what you're going through in life, what's far more important than what you're going through are your thoughts about what it is you're going through. That's essentially what my dear friend Jason said just a few minutes ago. Our thoughts shape our reality. And a thought I want you to consider during this season that we're going through is independent of what your eyes are trying to tell you. God is in control and he wants what's best for you. Which leads us to the third thought I'd like you to consider. And that is that in a supernatural, miraculous way that we cannot see right now, God is working out everything in your life in a pattern for good. That means in the long run, if you have faith, everything is going to work out perfectly. So this is principle number one, faith in God. And there's 3 ideas that can help us have the right ideas in our mind about God that ultimately shape our faith. Second principle, my friends, is be yourself. Be yourself. Be your amazing, authentic, incredible. Get down with your bad self. Just be yourself. I remember when I was growing up, my grandmother used to tell me, I'll do my best grandma voice. She used to tell me, Greg, to thine own self be true, therefore thou canst not be false to any man. My grandma was a big fan of Shakespeare. I am too. Shakespeare said that. To your own self be true. Therefore, you cannot be false to any man. Be yourself. Now, here's how that relates to our story about David. David, just a few minutes before he fought Goliath, a story that I just love so much, a few minutes before this battle took place, David had to ask permission to fight because David wasn't in the army. He was a shepherd. David asked King Saul, can I fight in this battle? Saul gave David permission on the contention that he wear King Saul's coat of armor into battle. Well, for a moment, David put the coat of armor on. He walked around with it. Then David realized, I can't fight in this armor. I haven't tested this. He took the armor off. Into battle he went, and you know how the story unfolds from there. Well, at the metaphysical, spiritual interpretation of this event in time and history, what Saul was trying to do was dress David up in an identity that was not who David really was. David put that armor on and realized, this isn't me. This is not who I am. I'm a shepherd. And he took that armor off. He embraced the man that he was. He went into battle and he was victorious. So my friends, what I would encourage you to do during this season is reflect on the way that God made you, the uniqueness of who you, there's only one person like you in the world. This means that you can do many, many things in such a unique, amazing, incredible way that no one else can do them just like you. So do what you can do like no one else. Get down with your bad self because you're incredible. And encourage others to be their authentic, unique self as well. What the world needs more of right now are big hearts, open minds, and a lot of positive energy. So be yourself. Finally, number 3, our third point that I just love, and that is master the basics. Mastery of the basics. What did David go into battle with? A sling. Well, he wasn't the only person on the battlefield that day. In a later part of the Bible, we find that there were 700 other, apparently, subject matter experts with the use of the sling. They were experts, but only David went into battle. Why? Because David had mastered that weapon system. He had mastered something that many people could do, but only David had mastered. In the context of mastery, there are 3 things I'd like to encourage you to master. Number 1 is in the context of the body. Because many of us are locked out of gyms, myself included, this is a good time to get down with the basics of an awesome physical fitness program. I propose that just 3 skills can keep you in the best shape of your life. Pull-ups, push-ups, and squats. Pull-ups, push-ups, and squats. I'm doing a lot of pull-ups, push-ups, and squats right now. Those are basic movements. But something Coach Glassman, the founder of CrossFit, taught me years ago is that we can do the basic movements with a spirit of virtuosity, which means to do the common uncommonly well. Second thing I'd like you to consider striving for mastery in is mastery of your speech. The way that you use your words. Your words create a reality all around you. Your thoughts produce your words produce action in your body. Those actions result in habits that forge your character, that determine your destiny. In other words, it all begins in your mind. Your mind focuses your speech. So this is an opportunity to bring greater awareness to the quality of every thought in your mind and every word that you speak. Speak positively about yourself, about other people, and find a way, even in the midst of what we're all going through, find a way to stay positive and to speak positively with optimism. Last but not least is mastery of something that all of us are doing right now. Breathing. We breathe thousands of times during the day, yet all the great spiritual masters and warriors teach us that if we can enhance the quality and the awareness of our breathing, we can fundamentally change our life. So in closing, what I'd like to do now is unite all of us. There's over 100 of us gathered right now from all around the world. Incredible. I'd like to unite us all in one conscious breath. We're going to breathe together. In any posture that you're in, you can be seated or standing. I would encourage you just to lengthen your spine. Then roll your shoulders back. Just for a moment, close your eyes. Nice. Now, as a group, let's take a deep breath in through the nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath. 2, 3, 4. Exhale through the nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. One more on your own. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Then open your eyes. Well, my friends, thank you for bringing me into your home today. I pray that God would bless you and keep you all safe. And I'm looking forward to being again with you in the very near future. Take care. Thank you so much.
Greg, awesome, brother, as always. Always love your message, man. So powerful, so strong. All of us breathing together. I've done a lot of breathing exercises with you, so much appreciated, man. All right, our next guys is the amazing, the incredible, the nationally renowned Brenda Neckvatal. Brenda has been seen and is sought out all across the country for her human resource expertise. And right now in this current day and age, I tell you what, there's a lot of companies that are trying to figure out, oh my God, what do we do in this crazy, uncertain environment? What if I have to furlough? What if I have to lay off? How do I take these loans? How do I take care of my people? And Brenda is known as the HR lady. So it is my great honor to introduce Miss Brenda Neckvatal, our next speaker. Brenda.
Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you guys, everybody, for being here. I'm going to share a little bit of information about you, but we're going to talk a little bit more too about what is also going on in the world as well. So I am a 20-year HR veteran. I've been doing this quite a while. Some of my clients refer to me as the HR force in nature because I tend to crank through their issues here really quick. I'm also a podcast host of the Best Practices in Human Resource podcast. I tend to become a specialist in crisis management, and that's not just so much in the preparation, but how do you actually get through these really challenging moments? How do you deal with, how do you know what to do? What do you move right? Do you move left? What do you say to your employees? I'm a government contracting HR compliance specialist as well, and I've actually had the privilege of consulting to nearly 500 small businesses, which means that I've seen a lot of things done a lot of different ways. And so what we focus on and what I focus on, both in the training that I deliver and the speeches that I provide and the speaking and just the one-on-one sessions, is really understanding how to solve the most challenging people problems that are out there. Like, how do you disarm real problematic employees? How do you stay one step ahead of them? You know, how do you have the right conversations and when to have them and where to have them? You know, how do you stay compliant? That's always a boring but yet interesting topic too. And then how do you mitigate that risk? So if you have to make a move, how much of it is going to be calculated and how much What are the things that you can do to actually pull back and prevent yourself from actually accepting more risk, and really help you understand what you can do? And everybody has a philosophy that HR people are all about telling you what you can't do. And that's not my philosophy. My philosophy is you're already up against the rope. So what are the things that you can actually do? So let's talk about that. So it's all about people problems, right? And really, everything that we're dealing with right now, I'm telling you, I'm so ready for just a sexual harassment case to come across my way, something different and flavorful outside of the coronavirus. But how do you deal with the effects of the coronavirus? And how do you understand the new Families First Coronavirus Response Act? And how does that, conflict or work even well with the CARES Act? So there's a lot of ambiguity that's going on around this. And this is where I've been playing for the last several weeks. Walmart actually is the first employer, naturally they usually are, that is the first to take on or be sued by some entity or an employee. And in this case, there's actually the first lawsuit has been passed where somebody's trying to accuse Walmart of actually picking up the virus while they're at work, which is going to be a very difficult thing to do. And every other employer has that exact same concern. So we talk through those things. We talk through how to actually, deal and foster and lead with a new culture working with a remote workforce. So you don't have somebody that's, all of a sudden flips their camera on and this is what you see, somebody's hairy leg coming over the top of their laptop. How do you prepare for a reduction in workforce? What are some of the requirements that you absolutely by law need to meet, and not necessarily work around them, but then how do you structure what it is that you need to do in spite of them, but yet still meet that obligation? How do you communicate with your employees? How do you bring your managers into the fold? Because they really are the ones that are, jumping in and out of the trenches with the rest of your team. So how do you do with that? How can you go ahead and launch 18 other potential items before you actually have to consider reducing wages or even reducing your employees? So there's a lot of different options that you can do. Other things that we talk about, these are all people-related problems. Like, what would be your reaction if you walked in and you saw your client-facing employee sitting at a reception desk like this, right? What do you say? What do you do? How do you manage this really interesting yet very sensitive situation? And if the person really isn't doing anything wrong, they're not stepping out of bounds, but clearly there's something going on. How do you manage that? If you terminate this employee, are you going to be legally liable for it? Well, probably you might. Where do they fall within American with Disabilities Act? How do you navigate through some real sensitive psychological issues and yet not have a reason for your employee to be separated or reassigned? And these are some very, very tricky conversations to have. One of my favorites, have you discovered an illicit relationship? Right? It's already tricky enough when we're working close together, right? And these interesting situations do pop up. Do you know what your responsibilities are? Do you know what your options are? And that's the one thing is that, we tend to sometimes become a little speechless when we're in a situation and we've never run into it, right? Ambiguity is not our friend. Ambiguity is actually is part of the people problem. But the thing with ambiguity is that once you stop and you understand, or you consult and you ask the right questions, then you formulate a path, and then you can actually respond versus having a knee-jerk reaction. One of the biggest things that is continuing, and we've got another speaker in our group and who deals specifically with workplace violence and active shooter scenarios, really is, are you prepared for unexpected violence in your workplace? I will never forget the day. I was just an employee. I was an HR sprout at the time, and I walked in. I saw two employees kind of scrapping it out verbally with each other. And one guy out of nowhere just walked up and cold cocked the other employee and knocked him right on his rear end and just kept right on walking. And, how do you deal with that situation? So are you prepared, to come? Are you prepared to deal with the hours that might come with a lockdown as it pertains to a violent incident? Probably one of the most fearful things that I've ever had to deal with was I had a phone call from one of my clients. I was in a meeting and my phone just kept blowing up. I'm like, something's going on. So excuse me a minute. And come to find out that two employees, yet again at the time clock, had a little dispute between each other, and I call him the instigator and the offender. And the instigator had annoyed the offender so much that, and wouldn't stop, that the offender actually said, if you don't back off, I'm going to slice you from ear to ear, using a company issued razor blade, right? So we had to deal with that. And it gets complicated. You know, how are you going to deal with your people? What happens if your employees are reporting to work and they're scared and they're nervous? I mean, these are all questions that everybody runs into when these situations are there. But the part of it is that are you planning for it? Are you prepared for it? Do you know what to do when you have to deal with your own leadership's unlawful behavior and what your individual liability is, either as a manager, you could be a first-time supervisor, you could be, you know, the most important leader in the company, right up at the top. And you may actually have individual liability on top of, you know, the company being liable for what's going on. So these are very important questions to ask. Probably one of the worst case scenarios that I ever walked into in helping a client clean up their environment was their CEO was a predator, and point blank, he was a predator. He had, unbeknownst to anybody else, had wired video cameras into the restrooms of the ladies' rooms and was spying on them. And so he had a tremendous amount of money, he had a tremendous amount of power, and it was his HR team that actually really restrained him just so that company could go on. So he actually did wind up spending some jail time too. And I came in after his release and continued to help them, you know, deal with some pretty difficult situations. And of course, you know what? Look, this is we're a veteran friendly family here. You know, we're part of different communities as veterans as a whole. You know, how do you accommodate the needs of those disabilities? And, you know, we see right here, we've got, you know, Lowe's has been, you know, notorious for allowing veterans to come to work and being able to accommodate their support dog. But here's a real twist to that. And what happens if you're accommodating somebody with one disability, but their disability can negatively impact another employee? So what if you had an individual that came in and you're accommodating disability and allowing him to bring his support dog and his service dog in? However, you've got an employee that works closely with that person who is horrifically allergic to that dog, right? So these are all dynamics that we have to manage through within the workplace. And it gets weird. It gets really, really weird. And these are the things that I help companies figure out. How do you know what to say and when to say it, right? How do you prevent yourself from ringing a bell that you can't unring, right? Once you make a comment, sometimes you will never be able to take those things back, okay? And how do you prevent from saying the wrong thing? And understanding that one misstep will lead to a greater deal of drama, as the employee, you know, may have a fear of losing their job, or you may have said something that to the point, or somebody, your manager, has said something that they shouldn't have, to the point where you can't go backwards, right? You can only go forwards. And those consequences are, it builds distrust from the employee. You don't have trust in the workplace. And leadership and trust, they wash the hands of each other, okay? If you have other employee consequences, they could impose heavy fines and a lot of public scrutiny. And you know what? When you've got an illicit relationship and you've got vendors and customers and they see these things, that's a genuine business problem. And those are things that we need to figure out and think through. It provides significantly more administrative work, but it also drives the cost up. And so by having those conversations and talking about this and working through the training and helping people understand, we solve these business problems, hopefully before they even become them, or they become worse than what they could potentially be. And you can find me on the Best Practices in Human Resource podcast. I'm on 11 different platforms. Apple Podcasts is the most common. You can't miss it. You'll see the big pink block when you actually go ahead and search for human resources. So Jason, thank you so much for having me on. This is fantastic. And I look forward to seeing all the comments and the questions from today.
Brenda, awesome. Thank you very much. Obviously, I know, so Soft Spoken, my speaking company, actually relies on Brenda for our human resource expertise. And in this crazy time, we have our staff, our team members, and obviously, like so many out there, we are looking forward to, you know, how do we weather this storm? You know, how much cash flow do we have to make all this happen? And obviously, she provides so much expertise all across the board on different areas. So Brenda, thank you so much. And now, of course, Our next speaker is both he's an amazing speaker. He also is a high performance and leadership advisor. He is a master of his mental abilities. He is the author of the book, F Your Feelings. I don't know who all we have on here. I might offend someone. So, but he talks about how we manage ourselves and how we manage our mindset despite what our feelings might be doing. He has personally coached athletes, Olympic, professional athletes, special forces guys, Hollywood celebrities, and entrepreneurs and C-suite executives. So it is my honor to introduce my man, author, tremendously high, supreme performance coach, Mr. Ryan Munsey.
Jay, thank you for the intro. I promise to do everything in my power not to let it go downhill from there. I heard I guess a high profile personality this morning speaking, and she was talking about how she's basically fallen into the same trap that a lot of us have over the last couple of weeks. And basically she was saying, I've got all these projects that I promised myself I would get to, all these things that need to be done around the house. And I always said if I had time at home, I would get these things done. And, now she's like all of us, 3-4 weeks into this quarantine, and these things aren't getting done. And it reminds me of one of the things that I teach and really try to drive home to the folks that I get to work with, whether it's one-on-one or groups, leadership stuff with organizations. And that is, we don't rise to our level of expectations. We fall to our level of training. And another way of looking at this is if we struggle to budget $2,000 as an individual, or if you struggle to budget $20,000 as a business, and all of a sudden we add a zero to that, are you going to magically become better at budgeting or handling that bank account? And the answer for most people is no. And it's because of the habits and the systems and the practices that got them there in the first place. And as I say that, and as I kind of went through that thought process this morning after hearing this person talk, it reminded me of something that that we actually dug into and helped an organization with 2 weeks ago. And basically, right now, we don't need philosophies. We're in a position, we're at a time right now where we need tactics. We don't need philosophical advice. We need tactical advice. If you, like Greg said earlier, we remember stories a lot better than advice. And so if you can imagine a visual of a rock climber who has slipped and is hanging on by 2 fingers, and you're there and you're looking over the edge and you can reach down and help them, that is not the time to lecture them or to remind them about the inherent dangers that they knew were there when they signed up and said, hey, I'm going to go rock climbing today, right? That's the time where you reach down, you help them off the cliff, save their life, get everything stable. And then in a time of peace or in a time of calm, we can start to, create those, whether you call them resiliency or redundancy measures. I refer to it as being anti-fragile. So if you're in an individual setting, if you're in a business setting, professional organization right now, now's not the time to, lecture people on, why things are going the way they are, really what we need to focus on are the solutions and the tactical things to get out of that. And so this is really, it gets me fired up because, one of the things that is never far from my mind is our mortality, and we get one life. And you know what? It sucks that this is happening to us right now. Nobody wants to be stuck at home for 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. But some of the things that I like to focus on and to remind people about are perspective. And, for those of us who are quarantined at home, simply reminding ourselves that, hey, you're at home. You're not in jail. You're not a prisoner of war. It could be a lot worse. And, just that simple mindset shift, putting things in perspective, leaning on the tools that we have, leaning into our practices that we've put in place to, guide us and help us optimize our performance on a daily basis. Things like gratitude practices, breath work, like Greg mentioned earlier, whatever your physical fitness or your movement practice is, the more we lean on those things, the more they can help us maintain a sense of normalcy. And, that's really what everybody is clamoring for right now. It's that lack of normalcy. It's that feeling of increased uncertainty. And then, of course, being cooped up and not being able to leave the house. And so, really leaning into those practices, keeping in mind that world-centric view. And so, one of the things that leads to poor leadership decisions, and even beyond that, a lack of leadership, is getting caught up in what we would call an egocentric view. And that's thinking about me, right? And everything that we've talked about already is, oh, woe is me. I'm feeling this way. I don't like that this is happening to me. I don't know what I'm doing. All of our thoughts are around us. And as long as we're thinking about us and how this is impacting us, we're not thinking about what we need to do, how we need to show up, and how we're able to lead and help those around us. So again, if you're an individual, how are you showing up for your family, your children, your spouse? If you're in a position of leadership, how are you showing up for the folks underneath of you? How are you showing up for the leaders above you at your job? And that requires us to have that world-centric view, to get outside of ourselves. And so, if you're struggling with these things, if you're stuck in your feelings, some of these tools to help shift your perspective will be incredibly valuable. A couple other things to keep in mind, as Jay mentioned, I'm really big on how our feelings drive our decisions. And there's a famous cognitive neuroscientist who discovered that as many as 95% of our decisions are made based on how we feel in any given moment. And so again, if we're stuck in our feelings, we need to do things that are in our power to shift our physiology. So, maybe turn the news off for a day. Maybe it's, I saw one of the questions where somebody said, the focal point is, what drives everybody's attention? How do we get people to shift? Well, for us, we could stop paying attention to the news, and we could stop sharing it and perpetuating it. We can talk about the positive things. Greg said, we need to be love and light and focus on positivity. And if we're sharing those things, then, the more of that we put out there, the more that can positively spiral and spin in a good direction. So thinking about what your values are, what is important to you, how do you want to show up? How do you want to spend your time? Because, it's not like your life has been put on hold. Sure, we can't do some of the things we want to do, but this is still 4 weeks, 6 weeks of your life. This is one of your summers. How many springs or summers are you going to get? And are you just willing to just throw one away and do nothing? So, if you had a goal of writing a book, if you have a goal of starting a business, doing projects around the house, whatever it is, you've got time right now. And how you choose to spend that time is the most important decision that you can make. I would really hate to see folks come out on the other side of this having done nothing but play video games or binge Netflix or stare at social media until their eyes hurt. You've been given an opportunity to press pause. How many times in the course of humanity have we been able to say that? At least during our lives, probably never. And we have been given the opportunity to intentionally and consciously decide how we want to move forward in every aspect of our lives. And, I would just ask and hope that everybody is intentional about how they approach and answer those questions. I'm not sure how long I've been going, Jay, but I think I'll stop there because the next section is, there's no way I can fit that in under the time limit.
All right, well, brother, do you want to wrap up? I mean, if you have any final comments, I don't want to totally cut you off.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think how we choose to spend our time is the most important thing. And, I would encourage everybody to, audit your actions, audit your feelings, and, be incredibly intentional and conscious about how you choose to spend your time and move forward as we come out of this.
All right, well, Ryan, I definitely appreciate, obviously appreciate you and your message. And I think it's so powerful right now for everybody out there to understand there's so many people right now that are letting their feelings drive their decisions, both in business, in their physical lives. And yeah, your message is powerful. So guys, check Ryan out for sure. And we'll address some more of those questions at the end. So guys, I am the final speaker. For those that don't know me, I served 21 years with the U.S. Navy SEAL teams. I ran my own nonprofit for almost 10 years, had an amazing staff of 11 on here. Some of my former team members are on here from that nonprofit. And, you know, having an amazing team and working with them is incredible. And it taught me so many lessons. And these are the lessons that I'm now sharing, both from my special operations career and my business career. I'm the author of 2 books, the New York Times bestseller, The Trident, and of course, my new book, Overcome. So let me jump right into this. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. All right, guys, it is unprecedented times. And for everybody that's out there right now, I speak a lot about being on the X. And what does that come from? That comes from 13 years ago. I was involved in a vicious firefight in Iraq outside of Fallujah. I was shot 8 times. And I did not think I was going to make it. It was how intense the fire was. I owe it to my teammates, to the special operations AC-130 that was up overhead. But the reason we got out of there is the same principle that you guys need to utilize in your everyday life when we're dealing with crisis. And whether it's mental crisis of I just can't get motivated to do something, or it's actually the business crisis of I'm not bringing in any revenue, I'm going to go out of business, or you know, I worked in a restaurant, I no longer have a job, what do I do in these things? Well, the secret is you got to get off that X. You got to get off the X mentally, you got to get off the X physically, you got to get off the X emotionally. And here's the thing, it's hard to get off the X. When I was laying there getting all shot up, these were the thoughts that were crossing my mind. They are the same thoughts I'm hearing all across this country right now. There's no hope. There's nothing I can do. It's out of my control. Or, you know what, I'll just deal with this later. I'll deal with it after the crisis. It's too overwhelming for me to deal with now. But guys, the reality is, right now is the time to deal with it. You cannot get off the X with all those negative mindsets. So I teach all kinds of skills to get off the X, but the reality is this. We don't have time to go into all that today. What I am going to tell you is you have to get off the X. You have to wrap that mindset around when you are stuck, when you are feeling that negativity, when you don't feel motivated to get up and do things. You got to get off that X. And today what I want to give you is 3 tools you can take to your business, or you can take to your own personal life, your family, to make sure you are getting off that X. Well, how do we do that? It's through productivity, guys. Productivity is the key thing that makes businesses successful. It makes individuals successful. It makes teams successful. And there's 2 components of productivity. The first one is structure, and the second one is progress. Human beings crave these 2 things. And I got to tell you that right now, they have been blown out the window. Structure is out the window. Everybody's working from home. Businesses aren't able to get together, at least in teams in person. For many of us, I mean, my old revenue stream of getting out, flying around the country and speaking to companies to motivate and inspire them was gone. So all that structure was gone. And then if you don't have structure, how do you make progress? Human beings, we also crave progress. We like to accomplish things. So here's the deal, guys. You have to put these things into your own life. And I'm going to teach you a tool to do that. It's called the 3 rings of excellence in chaos. And those 3 rings are this. First ring, you have to be a point man for your own life and for your company. Number 2, you've got to understand how to move the needle. And number 3 is GSD. And we're going to talk about what that means. We're big fans of acronyms in the military. So the first one is this, guys. In my military career, at one point, I was a point man, and I also relied on individuals who were called point men to get where we were going. Their job was, no matter where we were going, whether it was a target, destination, if we were just a humanitarian mission, it didn't matter. We needed to know where that destination was, clearly defined destination, and we needed to set a course, how we were going to get there. Life is no different. And here's the problem. When things get off course, and your mission has changed, you can't continue to go to the same destination. It's like a ship that's out in the middle of the ocean and you're moving along to this final destination. And suddenly as you're coming up to it, you realize there's rocks and reefs. So if you maintain that set course for that final destination, you're going to crash and drown. This current environment is similar to that. And I'm meeting so many people that have a business model that they're still trying to accomplish their original destination, their original business model. They're still on their set course. And that's unrealistic. Sometimes we have to change the course and we have to change that destination. And this is where you have to be a point man for your own life. And I don't care if maybe you don't run a business, maybe you are running your own family, maybe you have been unemployed. Well, now is the time to identify what is your next destination. I tell you, for us, about a month ago, we were on track to have the most successful quarter in the history of my business. We were just crushing it in speaking events. And all of a sudden, it all dried up. So if I continue to try and go to my original destination, which was to speak to more companies in the actual speaker, fly somewhere and speak on a stage environment, if I continued on that course, we'd wither and die. We'd die on the X. You have to do the same thing. We had to shift. We had to pivot off the X and look for a new destination. For us, we're now moving to the virtual speaking. We're now moving to coaching. We're moving to other things, but all that entails a different course. So here's the thing, guys. When you leave here, you need to figure out, where am I going in this new environment? It may only be temporary, but you've got to identify the destination. You've got to set that course. You've got to be the point man. And I got bad news. It's hard. These are rocky times. Things don't always go as planned. You've got to stay the course. You can't just set a new course and then suddenly decide, this isn't working. Let me try something different. Come up with a plan. If that is the right destination to go to, stay that course. Number two, guys, we've got to move the needle. I'm meeting so many people that are distracted by all the negativity, the media, all these things. You've got to have that forward progress every day. Remember what I talked about in the beginning? Human beings crave structure and we crave progress. So I have a tool that I tell everybody to do, to follow, to make sure that you're moving the needle every day. Every day you'll be able to go to bed at night and you'll be able to say, you know what? I might not have got a ton accomplished, but I accomplished these three things and I know I'm moving the needle in my life. I teach something called the goal setting rule of 3 Ps. And the 3 Ps are physical, personal, and professional. Guys, we need to move this body. You were born with an amazing machine. You were born in a Ferrari. This sexy machine that you walk around in, but so many of you have allowed it to slip. We get older, we don't work out as much because A, we don't think we need to, or B, we are too busy and we put it low on the priority list. But the reality is this, guys, taking care of this body, good sleep, good nutrition, a little bit of fitness will reap rewards for the long term. You handle stress better, you feel better, you look better. So guys, I cannot encourage you to accomplish one thing at a minimum 5 days a week. Get out, do a long walk. Greg talked about push-ups, squats. There's so many things you can do where you don't need a gym. Number 2 is personal. Do something to move the needle in your personal life. Maybe it's cleaning that closet. Maybe it's reorganizing the kitchen. Maybe it's doing your taxes. I know you got an extension, but why wait till the end? Do something. Maybe it's even making your bed, in the immortal words of Bill McCraven in that speech. Because you know what it is? You will feel good. You will have accomplished something personally in your life. And the last one is professional. What are you doing to move the needle in your professional life? Maybe it's in your business. Maybe you lost your job and you're like, where do I go from here? Well, I got good news. Maybe now is the time to change focus. Maybe you were waiting tables and now is the time to shift and decide, you know what? I'm going to start some online courses so I can go back to school because I want to be an x-ray technician or I want to be a doctor. Who knows what you want to be? But you got the time now. So stop sitting there on the X. Follow these three Ps, and at night you will be able to look in the mirror and say, you know what, man? I moved the needle today. I am the master of this ship. I'm getting us towards our destination. And the last one, guys, is GSD. So what does GSD stand for? It stands for get stuff done. There's also another way we could say that if we want to be a little more forceful, but it is execution. So many people talk and talk and talk and talk, and they never execute. Being a point man, moving the needle, you have to execute. Guys, get off that X, get off that couch, get out of the negative thoughts in your mind. Stop believing and listening to all this negativity on the news. Yes, there are bad things that are happening, but I hate to tell you, bad things happen around the world all the time. So instead, you just got to get up, man. Identify that destination, set that course, identify your 3 Ps, and execute on them. Do it. People who are successful, people that get off the X the fastest, they GSD, man. They get stuff done. I've had a lot of people talk to me about with the companies I'm working with, companies I'm consulting with right now. They say, well, Jay, we have a lot of our employees that talk about discipline versus motivation, that they just don't feel motivated. I hate to tell you guys, in hard times, you may not feel motivated. I'll be honest, I haven't felt that motivated this week because we're grinding, we're creating new things, we're moving in a new direction, and we're sailing into the wind. We don't have the wind behind us, we're sailing against the wind. It's discipline that makes that difference. It's discipline that says, I'm gonna get stuff done. It's always going back and making sure that's my destination and pulling your compass out and saying, okay, I need to do this because it's gonna get me where I'm going. So guys, don't rely on motivation, rely on discipline. All right, I guarantee if you guys put this into your business, if you put this into your life, I'm even encouraging my kids. I tell them, hey, what'd you do to move the needle today? What'd you do personally? You know, what'd you do for school? You know, and they're telling me I did this or I did that because I want them to know what it is to GSD, to get stuff done, to move that needle. All right, guys, that is my message for today. I want you guys to get out there and overcome. You have the ability to do it. Everybody does. Get off that X. So many of these speakers gave absolutely amazing messages. So many of these speakers gave such amazing messages. So hang on, I want to take a minute before we get into our questions. If you guys have any questions, make sure you're putting them in the Q&A window. I want to take a moment to recognize my Eagle Rise team. I have some amazing speakers. Not only all my speakers, I want to thank all my speakers. You guys are incredible. Thank you. And I also want to thank my Eagle Rise team, the lovely long-haired Admiral, and the other members of my team, Kim, Janet, Josh. Thank you guys, and Ryan for helping to get all this together. Guys, if any of our speakers stood out to you, please reach out to us. I'm actually going to throw this slide back up for everyone so that you can see this. All right, I'm not sure why this isn't working. Oh, there we go. It's called user error. All right, guys, so if any of you are looking for one of these amazing speakers, we have individual package speaker sessions, customized sessions for you or your organization. Some of us, we're doing weekly programs. We have preferred pricing. So check out more of our speakers at Eagle Rise. And if you want to talk about one of our speakers, just contact Kay Gudusky at eaglerisespeakers.com. So I'll leave that up for one moment. And then we're going to be doing another one of these in 2 weeks. We're going to be doing another one of these. It will be on Tuesday, April 28th. Once again, free for everybody out there, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to have retired U.S. Coast Guard captain and author Martha Kotek. We're going to have U.S. Army wounded warrior and author Brian Fleming, former Navy SEAL and television and movie star Ray Care, and U.S. Army veteran and author Brent Magnuson as some of our speakers, and we will have some more. So guys, I want to thank you. I want to bring all my other speakers back on, and let's take a look at these questions. Let's open up the question and answer session. And if you guys have any questions that we can answer live, then please bring them to us. How can we help all of you, whether it's individually or whether it's in your business? So we have a question, Greg. I don't know if you saw this one. It said, Greg, what things can we do right now in the absence of going to church and being around our friends, family, and church leaders to make up for that big void? What would you recommend to continue to be a spiritual role model for our employees, coworkers, family, and friends alike when our normal means of gathering have been altered or removed?
There we go. Tremendous question. Thank you for asking. What I've been doing is leading a Bible study on Zoom on Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Pacific time. You're welcome to participate in that. We are averaging 50 people joining us for that Bible study, or I would encourage you and empower you to model this practice in your own life. You can hop on Zoom and lead a Bible study or gather around other faith worship leaders. In other words, you can create a church-like environment through the social media platform Zoom, just like we've done today. If you want to reach out to me directly, you're more than welcome to. I can give you all the information about our Saturday Bible studies. I'd love for you to join us on that.
All right, I love it. So Jason, definitely, and we can even put that in there. So Zachary Hildebrand asked, with COVID-19, with that, the question was, and I apologize for that. The question was, and all of a sudden it went away. All right, so I'm going to go to the next question. I apologize for that. The questions jumped around right as that happened. So the question is for Brenda. Brenda, if you were put in a position to lay employees off, how do you maintain positivity and good morale among the rest of your team?
So that's a really great question, and that's not something that anybody's exempt from at this point. Really, my recommendation is that keep it real. I mean, it's all about business. It's business as usual, day in and day out. We may have to make some adjustments to it, but you know, make it very impactful as to what you're saying. Keep it very real. You know, don't pretend to be something that you're not, and let employees know that everybody's in this together, and that the more everybody pitches in, the better you guys are going to get through it. And also make yourself available. So if you have questions, make sure that they know that your door is open and that you're there to go ahead and answer them. That's really the best thing that you can do, because people are going to be nervous and they're going to be fearful. You may wind up seeing some people actually transition out or leave out. And, you know, there's going to be a level of that you're not going to be able to control, but it's the ones that stay are the ones that you really want to recognize that that's where your strength is.
Great answer. And as a small business owner, Matthew, I will caveat on that, you know, with our team members, I mean, I talked to them about the beginning that we didn't know how long this was going to last. And I told them, I said, here's the deal. I have enough cash flow to last this long. It is my goal to make sure that I take care of all of you. But I would recommend, and I gave them the option. I said, hey, do you want me to continue paying you at the level we're at, or do we scale back a little bit and reduce hours so that we can try and extend this, since we don't know? So transparency, I think, is really good with your staff. That helps maintain, you know, especially maintains those relationships. So Matthew also asked, Jason, how can I instill motivation and positivity in my team? How can I get them to understand they need discipline to maintain this? Guys, you know, it's tough, and really it's going to come from the leader. You're going to have to set the example, and sometimes it's going to be actions over words. You can tell people all day long, but some of that is bringing people together and talking to them about the things you as the captain of the ship need to make sure they understand what the destination is. And I got to tell you, if you're still driving the exact same destination you were driving before this thing happened, it's not going to give them a lot of inspiration, because obviously everything has changed. So you've got to make sure, or if you are and you have a solid reason why to do that, you've got to convey to them not only why, but how you're going to accomplish this in this current environment. Information transparency goes a long way to your team members, and then convincing them to understand that they're a part of this team, and that everybody has to get their head under the boat together to make this happen. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to that? Okay, we will, we've got a lot of people saying thank you so much. Thank you so much. Marty Daly said, to any and all, I understand the importance of discipline and motivation. What is a good strategy to instill this in children, teens in our daily lives without knowing you're doing it? I recommend physical violence with children. So, no, I'm kidding. That's a joke.
Hey, Jason, I got to jump in. I want you to answer this question, but just so you know, Marty Daly was the best man in my wedding 25 years ago.
Oh, no kidding. That's awesome. Well, it's cool. Well, maybe you should answer.
Oh, no. Listen, he's known me for 30-something years, buddy, all the way going back to high school, so I want you to tell him.
Does anyone, I know Inez is a parent, and Jason, and so I can tell you for us, what the long-haired admiral and I do is a lot of it comes down to the 3 rules of leadership I teach. Leadership is the same whether you run a company, whether you run a team, or as a parent. And the 3 rules are this: you've got to lead yourself first. That's the fundamental rule. I don't care, the old adage of do as I say, not as I do, it doesn't work. Your kids may follow that for a while, but then they're just going to see you as a hypocrite. And whatever bad habits you have, they're going to emulate. You want your kids to grow up and be successful, do successful things. If you want your kids to be athletic, do athletic things. If you want them to be productive, do productive things. If you want them to be positive, convey a positive message. This is what you have to do. I tell you what, kids will emulate that, even if you don't always feel like they do. Our kids are getting older now, and it is nice to see that they will. I'll hear them tell their friends, or they'll bring me a paper where they write something either they heard myself and the long-haired admiral say, or one of the people we've gotten them around talk about, like these amazing speakers on here. Anybody else want to add?
Jason, I want to piggyback on what you were saying about what our kids see and hear. So it's funny because I have to put my kids put me in check at times. Because I teach emotional intelligence, does that mean I'm emotionally intelligent every single day? No. I still have my triggers and I get affected. And a couple days ago, I was like really stressed out over something, and I was just not speaking in the nicest way. And my son, my 14-year-old son's like, Mom, you need to calm your emotions, and you need to speak in a way that I can understand you, because you're overreacting right now. I was like, oh my God, okay, I'm sorry. But like, I had to think, and he's like, Mommy, your emotional intelligence, you're better than this. I'm like, okay, thank you. But so they do, they see it, and they'll put you in check too.
So will your spouse. I mean, the long-haired admiral, I'm not immune. I ain't perfect, man. And sometimes I'll get tired and my emotional leadership will be weak. And I'll have a moment of weakness, and the long-haired admiral will be like, hey, do you need me to pull out one of your own presentations? Or she'll be like, hey, would you like to read your own book? And I'm like, Roger.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think we've answered all the questions. I think everybody, unless we had one more open up. So yeah, I don't see anything else. I want to thank you guys, our speakers, for coming on, obviously delivering your message. Guys, once again, if you know of a company, or maybe your own company is looking for some motivation, some amazing advice from any of these speakers, I tell you what, they will help you and your staff and your team members be better. Just reach out to us, let us know. Once again, Kay Gudusky at eaglerisespeakers.com, and we will be doing our next one on April 21st. And I really appreciate you guys spending your afternoon with us. So,
Thank you, guys.
Any final words from everybody?
Oh, thank you all very much. Thank Jason. Thank you for putting us on. Thank you for keeping us off the X and making the day better than you found it. I love you, pal.
Yeah, you too, brother. Much love to all of you guys. Thank you so much. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. We will see you out there in the on the battlefield of life.
Booyah. God bless you all. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jason.
Hey, guys.
Bye, Inez.
Bye.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.